Pooja. I'm glad to have you on the show.
Hey Radhika, thank you so much for having me on the show, and I'm just glad to be one of your guests. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah,
So, you are a quite famous person in Flutter. So, most people who are into Flutter would probably know you, but for the purpose of this talk, I would be glad if you can introduce yourself to the audience.
sure. Yeah, so hey, I'm Pooja Bhamik, and if you have probably heard about Flutter, you might have stumbled upon probably like my articles in Medium or like my YouTube channel or some talks. So basically, that's what I usually do for the community. I write articles for mobile development and Flutter, mostly Flutter. And I also have a YouTube channel that I launched like last year. It's very new, and mostly I got into the community by speaking in events like in India and internationally as well. And currently, other than what I do out in the community, I also like work in Creator Stack as a senior product engineer. So that's about it, I guess.
Okay, thank you for the great introduction. So, I have prepared many great questions that I would like to ask you, but first, I would like to know how you got into app development field itself.
Yeah, that was actually long back, probably in my 11th grade. So I actually wanted to, I had an idea in mind about like an app that I wanted to build for like CBSE board takers, because I was taking CBSE exam. And just in order to convert that idea into some product, I had to learn Java, XML, etc., to able to like create a product or like an app out of it. And that's how I just like made myself learn Java and Android development. At that point of time, we had Eclipse. That was like way before Gradle in a way. So I guess once I released an app out in Play Store, the reviews, the kind of response that it was getting, there was like no going back after that. I just could not stop developing apps. So I think it is definitely that first app that got me into app development. But like a lot of responses throughout the years kind of kept me in the field in a way. Yeah.
Okay, that was great to know. I hope this would have given people more insights about your thoughts.
Yeah.
So, we would love to know your story about what got you started with Flutter.
Yeah, Flutter I think started around probably my third year of engineering, when I was interning at a company. They hired me as an Android engineer, Android intern in a way. And when I joined, they were like, "Hey, we want to explore Flutter, and we want to see if it's a good technology to build our product in." And as an intern, I'm just like supposed to research about it and like help them get started. And I thought it was like a great opportunity for me to like get started on a new technology and framework, because by this point I was doing Android for like 3-4 years now. So I was like looking for this another chance to like try out a new thing. So because of that internship, I started with Flutter. And once I got the hang of it, I think there was no going back. I kind of felt like I was falling in love with mobile development all over again.
Okay, that was awesome. So, what are some of the resources you went for when you were first going to learn Flutter?
At that point of time, there wasn't much except documentation and really few articles. I'm talking about like 2018, the first half of the year. And there were very few articles, few videos. Pavan had a lot of videos at that point of time, but still very few in comparison to today. Like today, there's like loads and tons of videos on whatever topic you want. It's just there somewhere. Yeah, that time I think it was a lot of dependence on the documentation, and a lot of figuring out yourself. Like just reading the documentation, or just reading maybe a little bit of examples that people have worked with. So it was definitely difficult at that point of time. Yet That was also a bigger challenge. So I think that worked out in a way. Today there's a lot of content out there in Medium, YouTube, courses, etc. So today it should not be difficult for the people who are like looking to learn Flutter. But at that point in time, it was definitely difficult.
What advice would you give to someone who is into Flutter?
I guess one definite thing that I've noticed in people who are learning Flutter is that they are not focusing on the platform specific things. So if you are learning Flutter and you want to like get hired at a company for like just doing Flutter development there, a little bit of knowledge in Android platform specific things and or iOS platform specific things really is going to give you that edge with other candidates. If working is basically your priority, for just learning Flutter, if you just want to try it out, definitely try out a lot of different projects and just pick out some UI in Dribble and just try to replicate it. Whatever is your favorite app, just try to replicate that app in Flutter. You're going to learn a lot of things just replicating the things that you're already aware of, because at this point maybe you're not good with thinking a good app idea, but you definitely know okay, there's a really good, that Uber is great, that Dribble app is great, or that Reddit app is great. Try to replicate that in Flutter. You will learn a lot just doing by just doing that. So that's basically the tips if you want to learn Flutter for yourself and Flutter for just getting hired.
Okay, great. So now let's move ahead with our next question. So how did you get your first job in app development field? So what do you think contributed the most?
Definitely the fact that I had a lot of projects in my belt already. Not industry projects yet. At least if you just talk about my full-time job, by this time I already had 3 internships. So there was some industry experience for sure. And most of them were in Android itself, Android and also Flutter as well. So most of them were in the industry that I was trying to get a full-time job for. But other than that, even though I would definitely make emphasize that do get internships in college for sure in the field that you're interested in. Also projects really helped me because it was all over in my GitHub. My work was definitely out there. I was trying to get an online presence with my work as well, and that kind of helped me get noticed by companies because work is there, projects are there, industry experience are there because of internships. So in a way it was not really a very difficult task to convince people that hey, I'm good at Android. I just had to show my experience there. That's something that you definitely who are in college, they need to focus on to have a lot of proof of work. So yeah.
Okay, so I have listened to many of your talks and you were working as a senior engineer at Bounce.Share. So people who don't know, can you describe in brief what is the role of a senior engineer and what was your role as senior engineer at Bounce?
Yeah, so a senior engineer will obviously write code like anyone else, but more than that, their responsibilities kind of include a lot of mentoring people who are early careers there or just starting with the technology. For me, my main job was to mentor people from native technologies to Flutter. In a way, because we were migrating our native code bases to Flutter. So that was definitely one of my main jobs. But other than that, being part in architectural decisions or code reviews or making sure the quality of the code is maintained, managing bi-monthly releases. But also I kind of worked closely with the design team, the product team, and the QA team, making sure the releases are happening and the communication is happening. So there is definitely a lot of like people work as well, but also the same as like any engineer would do. Like you're working on features end to end. So that's the kind of thing that I kind of had in Bounce, where I was working on the migration of the native code base from the native technologies like Kotlin and Swift to Flutter. So yeah, that's mostly my 2 years been like.
Okay. So what are your learnings and experience working at Bounce?
It was a fabulous journey. You like 2 years almost, I guess. And the kind of problems that we were solving in the company, that definitely made me feel proud. Like even today, even though I'm not part of the company today, I still feel proud whenever there's like an achievement. So I had the most exponential growth there for sure. Like from just being like, you know, a college girl who just like joined to working on a huge migration of a huge code base that was used by 1 million people across cities, to almost like managing the releases and learning tons of people skills that you can only learn in an industry like this, and learning a lot of engineering approaches and learning from our peers about how they tackle XYZ in a way. So I had a tremendous growth in a way. I'm definitely thankful to all the people that I had in Bounce for sure. Yeah.
Wow, thanks for letting our audience know about this. And since now you have moved to Creator Stack, so you're now working as a senior product engineer at Creator Stack. So what does a product engineer do? And what is your role as senior product engineer at Creator Stack?
Yeah, the role is not really different in a way. You can say that there's like a slight variation in the title. Instead of calling like a senior engineer, it's like a senior product engineer. So the product is in a way how we do it in Creator Stack today is that we don't like have titles based on the domain in a way like Flutter developer, Android developer, iOS developer. It's every like we all are kind of engineers for the product. So like we do like a focus a lot on like, you know, being full stack as well in a way. So like, you know, just doing whatever it takes to build the product. So I think product engineers in a way saying that, hey, you're basically just, you know, building like just the engineering for the product. Your role is not based on your domain. You can basically like, you know, move from technology to technology. So that's just a slight variation. The roles and responsibility are exactly the same kind of that I had in Bounce as well. Difference would be that I'm working on the product from scratch, and in a way I get to build the product for creators, content creators like you and I, and that kind of like definitely makes me feel like more relatable to the work, and it's more exciting because it's a field that we are kind of like, you know, in. So it's like outside of work being a content creator, and inside of work it's like, you know, building the tools. So I'm definitely, that's a very exciting field in a way. So role wise it's almost the same otherwise. Yeah.
Great. I have been listening to several of your talks in which you have mentioned that you were always wanted to work with the startups. So is there any reason behind it?
Definitely the growth factor. I could not have learned like in the level that I learned, suppose like in Bounce or like Creator Stack. Like it's definitely like 2x or 5x of a traditional learning path. Like also if it's a product company, I get to like have ownership, and that's something that I really wanted when I was like, you know, looking for companies to work for. That I wanted to work for a product that I could say that it's, you know, my own, and like I'm part of it, and and you know, and it's like if people are like using it outside on the road, like when I see like people using the Bounce app, it's like, hey, my code is there. So definitely like that ownership is like really critical for me in a way, and that's why startup was definitely like a place where I could, you know, be part of the product decisions, be part of like the engineering decisions like more closely. And you also get to like wear a lot of hats in a way. Sometimes like hey, in Bounce my main role was definitely engineering, but I was like constantly doing organizing hackathons or events like DevFest etc. for the company, because I really wanted to like put the company out there in the like community. So definitely I was more encouraged to do that, because like do whatever you can to make the product and the company better. It's like you don't have to just do your own job. Like even if I'm more like want to contribute to design work, maybe that also I will be able to do if I really feel that I can contribute well. So I think there is definitely like a variety of things that you can do in startups, and also the ownership definitely makes me want to like keep on working there. And of course the growth, there is no question that the growth is going to be amazing, like exponential in a startup for sure.
Okay, that was awesome. It was a great reason. And now, since you are a GDE and everyone's journey of becoming a Google developer expert is different, so what's your journey of becoming a GDE for Flutter and Dart?
Yeah, I guess that was probably around 2019. Even though like I was like asked to apply for a GD program since 2018. I guess I was just taking my own time to like really figure out, is it really like for me, or like am I good enough for it or something like that. So I think for like a few months I was just thinking on that, and then I applied finally in beginning of the year in 2019. Basically it's the usual process of like getting nominated by Google, like either like a Google DevRel or like another GDE can nominate you for the program, because they have already seen your work. And I guess I did not have to like really work towards being a GDE, because the only thing that I really needed was already doing was really working for the community. There were a lot of like content out, and I was like doing a lot of workshops and conferences at that point of time. GD was never in my bucket list, because I did not think that I was good enough for it. I thought like you really need to be like super excellent and super expert in it, and I was not like super expert in it. I was definitely like just happy about the technology, and I was just like happily telling people about it. And that's what usually GD the program needs, is that people who are like evangelizing the technology in a way. And that's how it came. Like I got nominated, I had to like give a community resume, and I had to like go through like 2 interviews with a Googler and a GDE of like Flutter and Dart itself, but from some other country. And I guess after a certain point of evaluation, it kind of happened in March, I guess. And yeah, I mean, like I probably did not believe that, oh okay, shit, I have this expert tag now. But it happened somehow. So yeah, pretty grateful for that for sure.
Thank you for sharing your journey with us. I have seen you have been invited to the Flutter Live, and which is pretty exclusive. So could you share your experience of attending Flutter Live with us?
Yeah, I that was also in like 2018, I guess. I guess again the same reason was that okay, I've been contributing too much in the community, and they were planning to like bring on like onboard people from like around the world who are like contributors to the Flutter community to come into this one event. And like just network in a way. The event was nothing but the announcement of 1.0, the talks, and a lot of networking. It was mainly because mainly for that, I guess. So I guess it was probably like in December that the Flutter Live happened, and I had to like I got chosen to like attend it in November, and in half a month, or like I don't know, 3 weeks I had to like get my visa for it, which was a very big task because like 2-3 weeks of getting visa for like UK is not a easy task. I almost thought I'm not gonna get to London at all, but yeah, somehow it happened. I had to also miss my semester exams for it, but I was like, I don't care at this point. I'm going to London. So I definitely like once I got there, it was like a real celebrity moment in a way, because these are the people that I have been like seeing on Twitter throughout like the time that I was like working with Flutter, and it was like, oh my god, I know you, I know you, I know you. So like it was definitely like a great moment. Also, I kind of also got the chance like interview with Wim Lelle and Andrew, and it was definitely like really exciting. One that there was like an interview that was live, and my friends were watching from India live. That I was like, okay, this is really like I'm definitely like losing my mind here, but then this is like a really crazy. My like father watched the video and like shared it around the friends, and that was the first time that my work got me out of India, and that definitely like gave me like a very proud feeling. I was just proud of myself in a way. But like it's just the fact that it was not like any trip or anything, it was just my work that got me out. And that definitely like I'm super grateful for that one opportunity that I got, because after that things were just getting better and better and better, and till like in a way the pandemic happened. But definitely it was like a really grateful time for me, sure, for sure, yeah.
Wow. So, you have also mentioned many times about imposter syndrome. So, we all have something that holds us back. So, according to you, what is imposter syndrome and how one can combat it?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So, like, just the fact that it took me like around 3 to 4 months just to apply for the GDE program speaks of my imposter syndrome as well. Especially, I was still in college. I was too young. I was just like I was like definitely not an expert in Flutter, and even today I will say that I'm not an expert in Flutter as well, even if the tag is there, because there's a lot of things that I need to learn even in Flutter as well. Just things are just coming out every day in a way. I'm just losing track on how to learn them. But just the fact that it took me a time to like believe in my own self, make like in a way that I kind of was scared that the expert tag is going to like, oh god, it's very problematic for people who are like going through imposter syndrome. Like, you don't want to be associated with an expert because you feel like, oh, you're not good enough. You feel like you're just like a fraud in a way, that maybe you're not really knowing everything. So why the expert tag? So definitely that was a lot. There was a lot of imposter syndrome at that point of time. I somehow combat it in a way, trying to I don't know, comparing myself not with the people but with who I was yesterday. So like, hey, if I'm better than yesterday, I'm good enough. If I'm not better than yesterday, let me work on it. And that's how I kind of like try to convince myself that it's fine that you're not the best, but you're probably, if you're good enough, that's enough. So it's not always easy to combat imposter syndrome in a way. I still like get like times where I'm like losing out on things because of that feeling. Yet there is, because of my imposter syndrome, I kind of always improve myself every day, because I need to be better than yesterday at least. So that is the constant feeling that makes me want to like be better. And so it has worked in a way, good and bad for me. So definitely like people who are going through imposter syndrome, it's hard for sure, but you're good enough. Just believe that. Just don't compare yourself with people, and because that's the worst that you can do. To like it is definitely like very toxic in a way if you compare yourself with other people, like, hey, that person is doing so much, what am I doing? Everybody is gonna have a different journey. Everybody is going to look good on social media, but they probably are going through the same maybe. So definitely just compare yourself with yourself, only. And that should help you, get over imposter syndrome bit by bit. So yeah.
Yeah, that was very true and a really great advice. So, and now most college students wait eagerly for placements, but why didn't you choose to sit for placements?
Yeah, that's been really, like a really famous question once students find out, because I don't know, for some people it is shocking. For some people, they want to do that. Like I know for some people it's like, oh no, how did you even manage to, like, get a job without placements? And for some people, like, hey, I don't want to sit for placements, so tell me how to do it. And I think just the fact that placements is not the only way to get a job for sure, which everybody should in a way know, but definitely placements is an easier way to get a job, because the college is doing all the work for you. So they're getting you companies, you just have to, like, sit for it. Yet the companies that we were getting in my college, I was not getting too many good product startups. And as I said, I wanted to work for startup, and I wanted to work for an app development as well. So just those two were my major reasoning for not, like, sitting for placements. It was not like, oh, I just want to, like, show that I'm not, like, I don't need placements and all that. It was nothing like that. I even, like, made sure that my CGPA is good enough for, like, be able to, like, cross the placement barrier. Yet we already knew the kind of companies that we were coming by the fourth year, and nothing clicked with me. It was not a startup, it was not a product startup. It was there were Android development jobs, but since they were not a startup, I was not really interested in it. So I just, like, chose to, like, try to apply from in the outside. Sorry. So I try to apply outside of college, and I kind of, like, got a few leads and one offer probably by the 7th semester itself. So after that, I did not have to, like, sit for placement at all, because I had an offer in hand already. So I think that's the only reasoning, I would say. Like, if you think that the companies that are coming in your college is good for you or good enough for you, and it's basically exactly what you want, it's no harm in sitting in placements. It's not like a thing that you have to, like, show that, okay, I got a job without placements. That's nothing like that. Yet if you feel that you do not getting the right kind of companies from your college, you do not have to sit for the wrong companies as well and waste your time as well. So you can definitely start applying outside of college, and I don't know, like, try to, like, get your just the right opportunity outside. It does not have to be just through placements. It's just an easier way, that's all.
Okay. So, and since we are now in a field where technologies keep changing every day, and since you are now working on a full-time job, so how do you manage to take time out to keep polishing your skills and be updated?
I don't know. Like, it's definitely been, like, hectic with the current company as well, because, like, we are at the product launch state as well, and it has been hard to, like, get out time for myself and even my own community work. Like, I kind of, like, have my day divided into, like, my job work, my community work, and maybe getting a little bit of time to do, my own upskilling. So that does not happen every day. I can't, like, actually sit and, like, upskill myself every day. Usually it's probably the weekends that sometimes I just, like, get the time out. I probably, like, read a lot of articles in a way. I don't finish them yet. I just to get a flavor of what's happening around me. And recently my friend even suggested me something about a brain dump method. So whenever I'm, like, trying to learn something, and there's a lot of times where you're like, hey, I don't know this, I don't know this, I don't know this. But at that point in time, if you, like, just go into the loophole of, like, trying to get to know every word that is there in the article or whatever you're reading, you're probably not gonna figure out the the main thing that you were trying to study. So usually I just brain dump those terms on like a sheet of paper or like my notebook or my iPad or something like that, and like later on when I feel like I have more time, I just read what are the like things that I had no idea about and pick out some and start reading about that. So I just started that recently, and it has been very helpful in keeping a note of the things that I don't know, because sometimes you're just reading something and you realize I don't know this, but then you just like move on, and then you forget later on that what was that thing that you actually had no idea about. So brain dump is like a really good idea that people can definitely try out. Another thing is that when I actually watch a conference talk or like a YouTube video, I don't watch it on my bed, just like lying down and in a way like a very casual kind of a way, because that way I'm not going to be really absorbing any knowledge out of that video. So I always like make sure that I have like some kind of notepad in a way and try to like take down notes of what I'm like trying to learn. Maybe I will not like focus more on that particular day, yet at least I have some notes of what I try to like learn. Some people try to do this sketch noting in a way just to absorb knowledge out of a video or a conference talk, and that's something that definitely people should try out in a way. You don't have to be an artist for it, you just like have to be a good note taker in a way. And that's just few things that I just try out to make sure that I know what's happening around. It's definitely hard with like a full-time job as well, and also some community work that I'm doing, but it's very important for you to also do, because otherwise just going to become stale. Your knowledge is going to become stale at some point of time. So yeah, definitely try out different ways in how you contain knowledge, and keep double down on that. So.
Okay, so that was a very good advice, and this would be very important for the people who are watching too.
Yeah, definitely. Like the only few time that you get, maybe like reduce your Netflix time and then try to like learn a bit on whatever platform that you're learning from. Definitely like at least make sure that you have at least 2 days of at least 1 hour each of learning in an entire week. It is not possible every day for everyone. For college students, it's definitely more possible, but for full-time people, it's just like not possible at all. But yeah, try. Yeah.
So when we apply for job, resume and cover letters are very important. So what are some of the tips and advices you will give to someone preparing for their resume or cover letter?
Yeah, I have a lot to tell people about their resumes and cover letter, because I have seen people who are like really good, but they don't represent themselves well in the resume, and that is the only like way of someone like trying to know you for the first 1 minute of trying to know you. Of course, they can go into your LinkedIn, they can go to your GitHub, but if they don't find your resume attractive enough, that's it, that you're like things are over right there. So there's like something called like the 7-second rule, where you have to make sure that your resume is impressive in the first 7 seconds, because that's that amount of time that a recruiter will take to like just scan your resume. They're probably going to scan your resume for keywords and your experience and mostly or like the projects in a way. So definitely something to keep in mind is that represent your work well, and make sure that in the first 5-6 lines your work is represented well with the right keywords that the resume is intended for, or the job is intended for. And mention the meaty parts of your project first, like the one that is more impressive, rather than the one that is like less impressive should be at the bottom of the work experience. If you feel like the kind of job that you're applying for, it's like you do not have a work experience for that job, you only have projects, then definitely mention the projects first, because again the first half of the page should like give a good idea to the person that yes, this person knows Python. He like probably does not have a lot of experience, but then he knows Python. So let's see that if we can try out interviews with him or her. So definitely the 7-second rule is something that people really need to think about. And a lot of people just like give one resume for all the jobs that they apply for. It definitely should not be like that. You should definitely like tailor your resume according to the job description in a way, because there are keywords that they are like looking for. There are certain aspects of the job that they're looking for. Like if a certain job, they're like really making sure that you need to have testing experience, then do mention the testing experience more prominently in your resume, because that's what is going to get you ahead in the pool of resumes that they're going to get. So I'll have a lot of things that you could do in a way to like get your resume better. I kind of also like mentor around this in my mentor cruise. So if people are interested, definitely that's something that they can try out and see if they can have their resume reviewed, because I have a lot of experience in like interviewing people in the last 2 years, and I have seen good people get rejected just because of the resume.
Okay, so these are some of the great advices, and I will also make sure to put the link in the description too.
Thank you.
So now we are coming to the last part of the talk. So what would be your advice to any school or college student watching or listening to this show?
Yeah, I mean, definitely one thing that you definitely have to realize as a college student or a school student as well. If you're watching as a school student, like bravo, like you're already like learning stuff. So definitely like need to realize that this is a golden time for you to experiment with your career choices. Like, it's not really given that you have to like coding. It's possible that you might like design or product or like marketing in a way, but this is the only time or a very golden time for you to experiment and really understand if it's for you or not. Like in school we learn something like trial and error method or elimination method, and that's what we have to like do with our life career choices as well. And that's the best time to do it is in college, because you do not have to like earn money at this point of time. You have that entire 4, or so for some people it like could be like 3-4 years. Definitely try out a lot of things and eliminate the ones that does not click with you. So if you feel like coding is something that does not click with you and you feel like you're more interested in design, that's the time that you can at least like say that, okay, I have tried coding, I hate it, but I love design, so I'm going to have a career in design instead. Or the vice versa, like I don't think I like anything other than coding, so I definitely need to like double down on what I like in coding. So is it like front end or back end, or like I want to try out both. So definitely like even with your internships, you can try out these industry experiences and really get into that industry and see that do you really like working with people on that particular domain. So because later on I don't want you to like sit in your cubicle and then curse your life and saying that I wish I had chosen a different life or different career for myself. If you have figured out what clicks for you in college itself, it's going to make your actual job career is going to be much easier in a way. Of course, for some people, if they do not realize it by the college end, they can definitely have do it also when they are already in a job. But that's the thing, that you're already wasting your time in a career that you did not want. So use these 4 years like really trying to figure out what's best for you. And I see a lot of people in college, they kind of go for this dream company in a way. In a way, I would say never look for a dream company, but always look for a dream career. What is the career that you want to be in? Companies come and go. Like today, it might be like your dream career might be a dream job, or company might be FANG, because that's like the most famous thing at this point. Yet, it does not necessarily mean that it will also have your dream career. It's not always like given that your dream career is going to be in your dream company. So definitely look for the dream career in a way, like how do you want to work, what kind of things that you want to work on, and what kind of culture that you want, what kind of people that you want to work with. That is going to define how you proceed. Yet the dream company part is not going to like really make or break a career in a way. It's just going to be like a tag in your resume, that's all. So yeah, that's all I want to tell people in college and school.
Thank you for the advice. I really needed this personally. That's why I have added that school student in my question.
Oh, I actually I had no idea that you're not in college. I thought you were in college. Is it really you're in school at this point?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. 1 second. Sorry. Yeah, that is so cool. Like I always like thought that definitely like you're definitely like too young to do all this amazing work. But I also see a lot of me in you in a way, because I used to do a lot when I was in school as well. At this point, I've grown up. I'm like old now. But like it's very inspiring to see other people also like doing the same, and it's like amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, people doing in tech is really exciting because I also take so much inspiration from you too.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much. I mean, I'm definitely like learning a lot from you as well. Like just seeing the kind of work that you're doing, just this podcast as well. It's amazing. Definitely, I'm happy that there are people in, like, I would not say it's like a different generation, not that old as well. But definitely like you might be like, I don't know, like you might actually be like probably like 8 to 9 years older, younger than me. And this is definitely like a shock to me right now that I have like grown really old. But otherwise, the people who are doing these kind of work in school itself, it's amazing. It's amazing, like absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Pooja, for sharing your valuable knowledge, experience, and insights with us. And I will make sure to put all the social handles in the description so people watching this can check it out. And so again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Radhika. It was amazing to be on the show, and the kind of discussions that we had, I definitely loved doing that, because there were like a lot of good questions that people kind of ask a lot of times, and you have covered that already in your podcast. So congratulations on doing this, and also like thank you for having me here. So yeah.
Thank you so much everyone for sticking with us till the end. I tried to cover every important topic that could be valuable and serve as an asset for you. So if you find this video helpful, then make sure to share it with all your tag friends. And do hit that like button, it really motivates me to make much more quality content for you. And if you have any doubts, suggestions or feedback, then make sure to put it in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed till now, then make sure to hit the subscribe button, because I'm going to come up with amazing content on this channel. And also another amazing episode is coming on the next Monday, so stay tuned. So now I will see you in the next episode. Till then, keep learning, keep growing. Thank you.